In the dawn of time, before mortals walked the earth, the cosmos trembled under the rule of the Titans. From the shadows of chaos, a prophecy was whispered that the children of Kronos would rise against him, and that a storm unlike any other would shape the fate of creation. This is the tale of rebellion and destiny, of thunder and time, of gods who dared to defy eternity itself. This is Titanomachy, the epic war of the gods. Titanomachy, an epic of the War of the Gods, Chapter 1, the prophecy of doom in the first dawn of creation. Before men walked the earth, and before Olympus rose toward the heavens, the cosmos belonged to the Titans. Born from Gaia, the eternal earth, and Uranus, the endless sky, they were beings of colossal might. Their voices were thunder, their footsteps were earthquakes, and their glances could shatter stone. They ruled not with laws or mercy, but with the raw and unyielding power of the primeval world. Among them stood Kronos, the youngest yet most ambitious of Gaia's children. With a sickle of adamant forged from the bones of the earth itself, he had once risen against his father, Uranus, striking him down in a storm of blood and shadow. From that violent rebellion, Kronos claimed kingship over the Titans. His siblings crowned him as ruler, and he sat upon the throne of the cosmos, wielding both authority and terror. Yet the blood of Uranus soaked the earth, and from it sprang voices, whispers of fate that echoed in the caverns of time. From the lips of the oracles and from the depths of Gaia's womb came a prophecy, stern and terrible. The son of Kronos shall rise against him as he once rose against Uranus. The child of his blood shall cast him down, and a new order will be born. Kronos heard these words, and fear carved its mark upon his heart. He, the conqueror of Uranus, the king of Titans, trembled at the chains of destiny, for he knew well the weight of prophecy. No oath, no weapon, no fortress had ever stopped its march. Thus fear bred cruelty. One by one, as his wife Rhea bore children, Kronos swallowed them whole. The first was Hestia, goddess of the hearth, whose fire flickered and died in the darkness of her father's stomach. Next was Demeter, bearer of harvests, devoured before her touch could bless the fields. Then came Hera, destined to be queen of the heavens, silenced before her voice could echo across Olympus. Hades, lord of the unseen realm, and Poseidon, master of the seas, followed into that living tomb. Rhea's cries rang through the mountains and valleys. The earth mourned with her, rivers turned bitter, and winds carried the sound of her grief. Yet Kronos was unmoved. He sat upon his throne, his eyes cold as night, declaring, "Better to be feared by all than to fall by one." But Gaia, the eternal mother, watched with sorrow. She pitied her daughter Rhea and despised the tyranny of her son. In secret, Gaia's voice whispered to Rhea of a plan. When her sixth child stirred in her womb, Rhea fled to the sacred cave upon Mount Ida, far from the gaze of Kronos. There, in the silence of night, the child was born. His first cry was like thunder rolling through the cavern, and the air shimmered with hidden power. This child was Zeus, the one whom prophecy had promised. His body was small, but his spirit blazed like the sun. Rhea wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and, with trembling hands, gave it to Kronos. The Titan swallowed it greedily, believing he had consumed his son. He laughed in triumph, blind to the deception. Meanwhile, the infant Zeus was hidden deep within the cave. The nymph Amalthea nursed him with the milk of a sacred goat, and bees brought him honey sweeter than ambrosia. The Curetes, armored guardians of divine birth, danced and clashed their shields to mask his cries, so that no echo reached Kronos' ears. As seasons turned and years passed, Zeus grew in strength and wisdom. His laughter shook the cave like distant storms. His eyes gleamed with lightning. His breath stirred winds. And even as a child, the beasts of the wild bent their necks to him. He was no ordinary child, he was destiny incarnate. Yet always the shadow of Kronos lingered over him. The Titan king ruled with iron fear. He gazed across the cosmos, demanding silence, obedience, and worship. The other Titans, Hyperion of the sun, Kus of intellect, Crius of the constellations, Iapetus of mortality stood at his side. But among them, some grew uneasy, whispering of the darkness that Kronos spread, and of the prophecy that still hung unbroken. Zeus, in his youth, would often stand at the mouth of the cave, staring into the heavens. The stars burned above him, eternal witnesses of all ages, and in their fire he felt the call of fate. A voice stirred in his heart. You are the storm that will unseat the tyrant. You are the flame that cannot be swallowed. You are the son of prophecy. Thus the first seeds of rebellion took root. The world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the clash that would shake creation. Titans ruled the present, but destiny had marked the future. Kronos, blinded by fear, believed he had devoured his doom. Yet far away, in the shadows of Ida's cave, his son was growing the storm, gathering strength, the thunder yet to strike. And so began the tale of Titanomachy, a tale of fathers and sons, of betrayal and justice, of a cosmos trembling on the edge of war. Chapter 2. The Hidden Child, far beneath the shadow of Mount Ida, where the earth's roots tangled with veins of fire, the child of destiny was hidden. The world above trembled under Kronos' rule, but within the sacred cavern, a secret life began to bloom. Here, in silence and secrecy, the sixth child of Zeus, the thunder yet unborn to the heavens. The cave was no ordinary shelter. Its walls glowed faintly with the breath of Gaia, the Earth Mother herself. Streams of crystal water whispered across stone, carrying the blessings of the divine. In that hidden place, fate sheltered its chosen warrior. Rhea, though consumed by grief for her lost children, visited the cave whenever she could. She pressed her lips to Zeus's brow and whispered promises. One day, my son, you will free your brothers and sisters. One day, the chains of Kronos shall break. Yet she dared not linger, for the eyes of her husband searched always, suspicious and unrelenting. To nurture the boy, Gaia sent guardians of both beast and spirit. The goat, Amalthea, became his nurse, her milk rich with divine strength. From her horns flowed nectar, and from her breath came warmth against the mountain's chill. Around the child gathered the Curetes, young warriors clad in bronze, their dance echoing with shield and spear. Whenever Zeus cried, they clashed their weapons in thunderous rhythm, drowning his voice beneath the music of war. Thus, Kronos heard nothing, believing his line extinguished. Years passed, and the child grew swiftly. His steps echoed like rolling stones. His gaze was bright as lightning caught in mortal eyes. The beasts of the wild bowed before him. Eagles circled his cradle. Lions lay at his feet, and serpents slithered harmlessly across his hands. He was more than flesh, he was storm-made living, but within his heart, shadows stirred. Zeus asked often of his mother, "Why do I not dwell in the halls of my father? Why am I hidden in stone and darkness?" Rhea, trembling, could only say, because your father fears you, my son, and because the world waits for you to rise." From then on, Zeus carried the weight of destiny in silence. He listened to the whispers of Gaia, who spoke through roots and stones. "Be patient, child of thunder. Time is the ally of prophecy. One day your arm shall wield the storm, and the tyrant shall fall." Beyond the cave, Kronos reigned supreme. He sat upon his black throne, the sickle of adamant resting across his knees. His eyes were pits of shadow, forever searching for threats unseen. Yet he was blind to the truth of his doom. He believed the stone he swallowed was his son, and he boasted to the Titans that destiny itself had bent to his will. Around him gathered his brethren, Atlas, broad-shouldered, the general of Titan armies; Hyperion, whose gaze burned like the sun; Iapetus, cold and cunning, master of death and craft; Crius and Cus, keepers of stars and knowledge. Together they held dominion, yet cracks had begun to spread in their rule. For while Kronos consumed his children, the Titans themselves grew restless. The sun scorched too fiercely, the seas raged without calm, the earth groaned beneath their weight. The balance of the cosmos trembled, awaiting correction. Back in the cave, Zeus' spirit hardened like tempered steel. He trained with the curates, learning the clash of sword against shield, the rhythm of battle. Amalthea's horns, once vessels of milk, became symbols of plenty, their fragments later bound into charms of power. From the winds that whistled through the cavern, Zeus learned the language of storms. From the crack of stone, he felt the pulse of thunder. One night, as lightning split the sky outside, Zeus dreamt in his vision. He stood upon a mountain higher than any he had seen, crowned with cloud and flame. Below him stretched the world, trembling yet waiting. Beside him stood figures, his siblings, freed from darkness, their eyes alight with fire. And before him lay Kronos, broken, his sickle shattered at Zeus' feet. He awoke with sweat upon his brow, but his heart burned like a forge. He knew then that his path was set. Time moved forward. Zeus grew tall, his shoulders broad, his voice carrying the command of kings. When he walked the slopes of Ida, storms followed him. Farmers in distant valleys whispered of a new power stirring in the heavens. They did not know his name, but they felt the change in the winds, and their hearts beat with secret hope. When at last the boy became a man, Rhea returned once more. Her eyes shone with both sorrow and pride as she beheld him. She told him of his siblings, still trapped within the belly of Kronos, their voices silenced but not forgotten. She told him of the prophecy and of the chains that bound the world in fear. Zeus clenched his fists, lightning sparking between his fingers. "Then I shall not hide any longer," he said. "I will free them. I will break the reign of Kronos, as he once broke Uranus. If destiny wills it, I shall fulfill it." The cave shuddered, as though the earth itself answered his oath. The Curetes struck their shields in triumph. Amalthea bleated her blessing, and Gaia's voice whispered through the stone. "The storm has awakened." Thus the hidden child was hidden no longer. Zeus, son of Kronos, heir of prophecy, rose from the darkness of Mount Ida to begin his journey. The heavens trembled. The first spark of rebellion had been lit. Chapter 3: The Awakening of Zeus. The day came when Zeus could no longer remain a shadow in the cavern of Ida. The blood of Titans ran through his veins, yet the storm within him belonged to no master but destiny itself. He had grown in secret, But now the world itself seemed to call for him. Every thundercloud that gathered above the mountains, every tremor that shook the valleys, whispered his name. Zeus descended from the cavern and stood upon the slopes of Crete. The winds bent to him. The eagles wheeled above him, and lightning traced his path. He was no longer the hidden child. He was the storm incarnate, the counsel of Gaia. One night, as the stars burned bright over the world, Zeus journeyed to the ancient grove where Gaia, the Earth Mother, dwelt. Her roots entwined the earth, her breath filled the forests, and her eyes burned with wisdom older than the heavens. "Grandmother," Zeus said, kneeling upon the soil, "I have waited, trained, and grown, but my heart burns with questions. How shall I confront Kronos, who devours his own blood and bends the cosmos to terror?" Gaia's voice rumbled like the turning of mountains. "Child of prophecy, storm-bearer, you cannot face him alone. Yet within Kronos himself lies the key to his downfall. Your siblings live, though swallowed, their essence imprisoned in darkness. Free them, and you will not stand alone. Free them, and the Titan's dominion will tremble." Zeus bowed his head, but still he asked, "Tell me, how can the devourer be undone?" From the roots of the world, Gaia drew forth a vial filled with shimmering golden liquid, distilled from the breath of eternity. "This potion I give to you. Place it into Kronos' cup, and the tyrant will disgorge what he has stolen. Thus shall your brothers and sisters rise again, and together the war shall begin." Zeus accepted the gift, his heart steady. Lightning flickered across his arms as he whispered, "So it begins." The servant of Kronos, to reach Kronos, Zeus cloaked himself in secrecy. Disguised as a humble cupbearer, he entered the palace of his father on Mount Othrys. None recognized him, for the boy thought dead had grown into a god clothed in storm. Kronos sat upon his throne of black stone, surrounded by titans. His eyes smoldered like coals. His sickle lay across his knees. The halls echoed with arrogance and cruelty, yet none dared challenge his power. Zeus knelt before him, offering wine. "Great Kronos, Lord of Time, accept this cup, poured in your honor." The Titan Lord took the chalice, heavy with the draught Gaia had given. He drank deeply, the liquid burning like fire through his throat. For a moment he laughed, mocking the weakness of mortals and the futility of prophecy. But then his laughter choked, his body convulsed, and a roar tore from his mouth. The liberation, one by one, the children he had devoured burst forth in light and shadow. First came Hestia, goddess of the hearth, radiant with flame. Then Demeter, goddess of harvest, her hair flowing with golden grain. Next, Hera, fierce with majesty, her eyes gleaming like polished steel. Then came Hades, cloaked in shadow, his gaze deep as caverns. After him, Poseidon, bearing the salt of the sea in his breath, his presence heavy as the tide. Last, the cavern shook as their cries joined Zeus, united not as broken fragments, but as gods reborn. The 6 children of Rhea stood together at last, freed from the tyranny of their father. Their power surged, filling the hall with light, storm, and shadow. The Titans trembled, for prophecy now lived before their eyes. The oath of the 6 in that moment, Zeus raised his hand, lightning bursting across the skies outside Mount Othrys. His voice thundered, "Brothers, sisters, our chains are broken. No longer shall we cower in darkness. No longer shall Kronos devour his own blood to preserve his reign. The time has come. We are not prey, we are gods, and we shall cast down the tyrant who rules with fear. Poseidon struck his fist upon the ground, and the earth quaked like waves in storm. With sea and storm, I stand beside you, brother. Hades lifted his hand, shadows curling like smoke. With darkness and death, I claim my place in this war. Hera's voice rang like steel. I shall wear the crown of the heavens, and no tyrant shall silence me again. Demeter raised her hands, vines and grain sprouting from the stone floor. Life itself shall rise against the devourer. Hestia, calm yet fierce, spoke last. By the eternal flame we shall endure. By fire we shall purify. Together they swore their oath. The halls of Othrys shook as if the heavens themselves bore witness. The wrath of Kronos, but Kronos, though weakened, was not yet broken. His roar shook the mountains, splitting stone and summoning storms of fire. His eyes burned with hatred as he clutched his sickle. You dare defy me, children of my blood. You are mine, I forged you, I devoured you, I command you. Lightning struck at his feet as Zeus answered, No, Father, you forged your own ruin. The time of Titans ends. The age of gods begins. Kronos lifted his sickle high, and the Titans roared their allegiance, rallying behind him. Atlas thundered his vow to crush the rebels. Hyperion's eyes blazed with the fury of the sun. Oceanus raged with the fury of waves. The war had begun. From the stormy slopes of Othrys to the caverns of Tartarus, the prophecy took shape. The gods were no longer children, no longer prisoners, they were warriors, and their rebellion would shake the pillars of the cosmos. Thus ended the awakening of Zeus, and thus began the war that mortals and immortals alike would forever call the Chapter 4. The first clash. The heavens trembled as the oath of rebellion echoed across Mount Othrys. The 6 freed gods stood in defiance, their forms blazing with newfound might, while the Titan king rose in wrath. Kronos gripped his sickle, its edge still dripping with the blood of ages, and his voice thundered, Children of prophecy, ungrateful spawn, you dare to defy your father. I devoured you once, I shall devour you again, and this time even fate shall choke on my power. His words were a storm, and the Titans at his side roared their loyalty. Atlas stamped his foot, and the mountain quaked. Hyperion's eyes flared, blinding with sunlight. Oceanus surged with waves that foamed into the sky. The palace of Othrys became a fortress of war. But Zeus stood unyielding. Lightning writhed around his arms like serpents, the skies already bending to his will. He raised his hand, and thunder boomed like a war drum. No more chains, no more darkness. By storm and sky, I claim freedom. By storm and sky, I declare war. Thus the first clash began. The gathering storm, the Titans advanced in fury. Atlas led the charge, his bronze spear sweeping with the strength of mountains. Behind him, Hyperion unleashed a torrent of fire, searing the heavens. Kus and Crius chanted ancient words, their voices pulling at the stars themselves, bending constellations into weapons of war. Zeus answered with lightning, hurling bolts that split the battlefield, shattering stone and searing air. His siblings joined him, Poseidon, summoning waves from the heart of the earth. Hades raising walls of shadow to block the Titans' charge. Hera's voice commanding like a queen upon a field of soldiers. Demeter rooted the ground beneath their enemies' feet, vines coiling to entangle their legs, while Hestia summoned purifying fire, burning away the corruption of Kronos' reign. The two forces collided, storm against stone, fire against flood. The mountain shook, the sky screamed, and the world bore witness to the birth of war. The fury of Atlas roared and struck, his spear cleaving through shadow and vine alike. He swung with such force that the air itself cracked. Poseidon met him, trident against spear, the clash sending shockwaves across the plain. "Stand down, Titan," Poseidon shouted. "The seas bow not to tyrants," but Atlas only laughed, his strength unyielding. "The seas are but rivers carved from the bones of Titans. You are nothing but a wave, and I am the mountain it breaks upon." Again and again they struck, each blow resounding like thunder, each strike reshaping the battlefield. Hyperion's flame. Elsewhere, Hyperion blazed with the fire of the sun, his presence burning so fiercely that stone melted at his feet. Hera and Demeter stood against him, one wielding majesty, the other the abundance of life. "You cannot blind us, Hyperion," Hera cried, raising a shield of divine will. "Your fire is but arrogance set aflame." Demeter struck the ground, and from the scorched soil rose fields of golden wheat, each stalk shimmering with power. They coiled together, forming spears of harvest that pierced through Hyperion's fire. But Hyperion's laughter was like wildfire. "Life burns, crowns melt, the sun endures. You are sparks, and I am the eternal flame." The clash raged, fire against grain, arrogance against endurance. The shadows stir, meanwhile. Hades slipped through shadow, his gaze fixed upon Zeus, the titan of intellect and prophecy. The two circled one another, wisdom against cunning, foresight against the silence of death. Zeus sneered, "You are but a shadow, child. Knowledge is power, and I see your every move before you make it." But Hades, calm as stone, replied, "Then you see this as well, the silence that follows all things. From the darkness, chains of shadow burst forth, wrapping around Zeus' limbs. For every prophecy he spoke, Hades silenced him with a deeper truth, that even wisdom ends in death." Kronos enraged, yet above all, the battle between father and son shook the heavens. Kronos struck with his sickle, each swing carving arcs of time itself. Mountains aged and crumbled in his wake, rivers withered to dust. The very world bent beneath his strikes. Zeus met him with thunder. Lightning clashed against adamant, each collision exploding with the fury of creation. Kronos sought to swallow him as he had before, his maw opening like a void. But Zeus hurled lightning down his throat, forcing the Titan back with a roar that cracked the firmament. "You cannot bind me, father," Zeus cried. "I am not the child you devoured. I am the storm that will devour you." The clash of their weapons shook both heaven and earth, each blow a prophecy fulfilled, each strike a promise of greater war to come. The retreat. The battle raged for days, neither side yielding. The world itself groaned beneath their fury. But though the young gods fought with valor, the Titans were ancient, their power vast, their numbers many. At last, Zeus called his siblings together, raising a shield of storm to cover their retreat. "Not yet, my brothers and sisters. We cannot win today, but we have struck, and the Titans have bled. That is enough for now." Reluctantly, they withdrew into the shadows of Mount Ida, their spirits unbroken, though their bodies weary. The Titans roared in triumph, and in the heart of Kronos, for the first time, stirred a seed of fear. Thus ended the first clash, not with victory, but with defiance. The war had begun in truth, and the heavens knew it would not end until either Titan or God lay broken. The world held its breath, for this was only the beginning of the Titanomachy. Chapter 5. The search for allies. The first clash had ended not in victory, but in awakening. The gods had fought bravely, yet the Titan's strength proved overwhelming. In the shadows of Mount Ida, Zeus and his siblings gathered, their bodies weary but their spirits burning brighter than ever. The storm had been born, but the storm needed force. Zeus stood before his brothers and sisters, the night sky alive with lightning above him. "We have defied Kronos," he declared, his voice echoing across the darkened slopes. "But defiance alone will not win us this war. The Titans are many, and their strength is forged in the bones of creation itself. We must seek allies, forgotten, those buried, those who hate Kronos as deeply as we do." His siblings listened in silence, the weight of his words pressing upon them like the turning of the heavens. Poseidon leaned upon his trident, waves whispering around his feet. Hades' eyes gleamed from the shadows, already calculating. Hera stood tall, her majesty unbroken. Demeter and Hestia nodded, their resolve steady as the earth and flame they carried. And so began the search, the council of Gaia. Once more, Zeus sought Gaia, the Earth Mother, deep in her caverns, where roots reached the heart of the world. He spoke. "Grandmother, we have fought, but the Titans remain unbroken. Tell me where may we find allies strong enough to turn the tide." Gaia's voice rumbled like mountains shifting in their sleep. Long ago, when Uranus ruled the heavens, he cast away his children, the Cyclopes, smiths of thunder and flame, and the Hecatoncheires, the hundred-handed guardians of chaos. They lie imprisoned in Tartarus, chained by Kronos in his fear. Free them, child of storm, and you shall gain strength enough to shake Olympus itself. Zeus bowed, thunder sparking in his veins. "Then to Tartarus I shall go. Better to descend into night than to leave hope unclaimed." The journey to Tartarus with his brothers beside him. Zeus descended into the abyss. Hades led the way, his command of shadow parting the veils of darkness. Poseidon's power held the rivers of the underworld at bay. And Zeus' lightning lit the path like torches against eternal night. Down they went, past caverns where lost spirits wailed, past rivers of fire and sorrow. At last, they came upon the gates of Tartarus, vast and iron-bound, guarded by monsters whose forms shifted like nightmares. But Zeus lifted his hand, lightning blazing like the sun. The gates, forged by fear itself, cracked and shattered before his storm. The prisoners of eternity. Within the abyss lay the forgotten children of Uranus, the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants, bound in chains of unbreakable bronze. Their eyes glowed faintly with the fire of creation, yet their hands lay idle, denied the forge. And the Hecatoncheires, monstrous beings with 50 heads and 100 arms, chained with fetters heavier than mountains. Their roars shook the cavern, but their strength lay smothered by Kronos' fear. At the sight of the gods, the prisoners stirred. "Who comes into our prison?" bellowed Briareus, mightiest of the 100-handed, another servant of Kronos, come to mock our chains. But Zeus stepped forward, his voice carrying thunder. "No servant of Kronos am I. I am Zeus, son of the devourer, son of prophecy. I come not to mock, but to free. For I say this to you together. We shall tear down the tyrant who cast you here." The Cyclopes lifted their heads, and for the first time in ages, hope flickered in their single eyes. The Hecatoncheires stilled their fury, listening to the storm-born god, the gift of the Cyclopes. With a cry that split stone, Zeus struck the chains of the Cyclopes with lightning, and they shattered into molten shards. The one-eyed smiths rose, stretching arms long denied the forge. "We know you, Zeus," said Argus, his eye burning like flame. "Gaia foretold your coming, and we have gifts to give." They led the brothers into the heart of Tartarus, where the fire of creation still burned. There they forged weapons no hand had ever wielded. For Zeus, the Thunderbolt, a spear of lightning bound by storm. For Poseidon, the Trident, a weapon that commanded all seas and shook the earth itself. For Hades, the helm of darkness, rendering its wearer unseen and feared even by death itself. "These are not mere weapons," said Sterops, the second Cyclops. "They are your essence made form. Wield them, and the Titans shall tremble." The oath of the 100-handed next, Zeus broke the chains of the Hecatoncheires. The earth shook as their prison fell, and the beings rose, towering and terrible, their 100 arms grasping boulders, mountains, and storms alike. Briareus spoke for them. "Kronos feared us, and so he buried us in darkness. But you, son of prophecy, have freed us. Swear your war is just, and we shall fight beside you until the heavens themselves fall." Zeus lifted his thunderbolt high, lightning illuminating the abyss. "I swear it, not for my crown, not for glory, but for freedom, for gods, for earth, for sky. Together we shall end the tyranny of Kronos." The cavern roared with the voices of the 100-handed. Their oath was sealed. The rising storm, when Zeus and his brothers returned from Tartarus, they were no longer 6 young gods defying fate. They were leaders of a host. The Cyclopes, with their forges and fire. The Hecatoncheires, with their countless arms. The freed gods, united in purpose. On Mount Ida, the sisters awaited, and when they saw the storm gathering, their hearts blazed with courage. Hera, Demeter, and Hestia stood beside their brothers, ready to wield their own divine might. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, the first of its kind, and the skies above split in answer. "Now," he thundered, "the war begins in truth. Let the Titans tremble, for the storm has found its army." And across the world, the winds howled, the seas raged, the mountains shook. The prophecy of Gaia moved ever closer to fulfillment. Thus ended the search for allies, and thus began the forging of destiny. The gods were no longer alone. The storm had grown teeth, and the age of Titans quaked before the rise of the Olympians. Chapter the 6th, the Siege of Othrys. The world trembled as the storm gathered. Zeus, now armed with the thunderbolt, Poseidon with the trident, and Hades with the helm of darkness, marched at the head of their newfound army. Beside them strode their sisters, Hera with regal command, Demeter with the power of life itself, and Hestia with the fire that never fades. Behind them thundered the Hecatoncheires, their 100 arms lifting mountains as weapons, their 50 heads roaring with fury. And beside them marched the Cyclopes, masters of the forge, carrying hammers and blades wrought from the fire of creation. Their destination was the black fortress of Kronos Mount Othrys, seat of Titan power, carved from the bones of the world. Its walls rose higher than clouds, its gates guarded by fire and shadow. From within, the Titans prepared, their arrogance shaken, but their might undiminished. The call to war, Zeus stood upon a ridge overlooking Othrys. The storm swirled at his command, thunder booming in rhythm with his heart. He raised his thunderbolt high, and his voice split the heavens. "Children of earth, children of sky, we march not for vengeance alone, but for freedom. For too long the Titans have ruled with fear and chains. But now the storm comes for them, and no wall, no throne, no tyrant shall withstand us. Strike with me, and let this day be remembered as the dawn of a new age." His words ignited the hearts of gods and allies alike. The hecatoncures bellowed their war cries, shaking the mountains. The Cyclopes struck their hammers upon anvils of stone, each blow ringing like a drum of doom. The gods themselves glowed with radiance, their powers rising as one, and thus the siege began. The Titan defenders from the battlements of Othrys, the Titans gathered to meet the storm. Atlas, broad-shouldered and unyielding, raised his shield as wide as the sky. Hyperion blazed like a second sun, casting fire upon the battlefield. Oceanus churned rivers into floods, his fury drowning valleys. Zeus and Kronos bent the constellations, pulling stars from heaven to hurl as weapons. And above them all, upon the black throne, sat Kronos, sickle in hand, his gaze heavy with fury and fear alike. "Let them come," he growled, his voice shaking the very stones. "Let them bleed upon the walls of Othrys, and let prophecy choke in its cradle." The clash of armies, the first strike, came from the hecatoncures. With 100 arms they hurled mountains, boulders larger than cities, crashing against the walls of Othrys. The fortress shook but did not fall, for Atlas braced the walls with his shield, holding back the storm of stone. Then Hyperion unleashed fire, his body blazing brighter than the sun. Entire ranks of the Cyclopes were scorched, their hammers melted in their hands. But Demeter struck the ground, and from the scorched earth rose forests anew, swallowing Hyperion's fire in green defiance. Poseidon lifted his trident, and waves surged from the depths, crashing against Othrys. The fortress groaned as rivers climbed its walls, drowning battlements. Yet Oceanus met him, summoning waters greater still, and the seas themselves warred upon the battlefield. The duel of shadows in the chaos, Hades vanished beneath his helm of darkness. Unseen, he slipped into the fortress, a whisper of death among the Titans. He struck at Kronos, dragging him into a chasm of shadow. Their battle fought in silence, where even stars dared not look. Zeus sought to counter him with prophecy, chanting visions of the gods' doom. But Hera's voice cut through like steel. "Your foresight blinds you, Titan. It is not prophecy that rules this war, it is will." She hurled her command like a spear, and for a moment even the stars above faltered. Zeus against Kronos, yet the true storm was elsewhere. Zeus ascended the walls of Othrys, his thunderbolt blazing in his hand. Kronos rose from his throne, sickle gleaming with the power of time itself. "Foolish child," Kronos snarled. "Did you think thunder could unmake time? I devoured you once. I shall devour you again, and your brothers and sisters with you." Zeus hurled his thunderbolt. It struck the sickle, exploding in a blaze that split the heavens. Lightning and time clashed, tearing holes in the sky, spilling light and shadow across the battlefield. Kronos struck, his sickle cutting through mountains, aging them to dust. Zeus answered with storm after storm, each bolt shaking the fortress to its core. Their duel became the heartbeat of war itself, each blow echoing across heaven and earth. The turning tide for days and nights, the siege raged. Neither side yielded, the ground itself splitting beneath their fury. But though the gods fought valiantly, the Titans were ancient and entrenched. Othrys. At last, Zeus called upon the hecatoncures, brothers of 100 hands. This fortress must fall. With a roar, Briareus and his kin tore mountains from the earth, and hurled them as missiles. Walls crumbled, towers split. The battlements of Othrys cracked under their assault. The Titans fought back with fire and flood, but for the first time in an age, their fortress bled. And Kronos, though unbowed, felt the seed of fear within him grow. The retreat into shadows, but still, victory was not yet. The Titans regrouped, their power vast, their defenses unbroken at the core. Kronos summoned storms of time itself, casting whole battalions into dust. The gods, though fierce, could not yet overcome him. Once more, Zeus gathered his siblings. We have struck them, but not broken them. This war will not be won in a single siege. We must endure, as storm endures, striking again and again until even mountains fall. Reluctantly, the gods withdrew, their armies carrying the wounded, their thunder still echoing. The Titans roared in hollow triumph, for though Othrys still stood, its walls bore scars that would never heal, and the heavens whispered, "This war will last not days, but ages." Thus ended the siege of Othrys, not in victory, but in fire and promise. The gods had shown their strength, and the Titans had learned fear. The storm was not spent. The storm had only begun. Chapter the 7th. The balance of war. The siege of Othrys had ended, yet the war did not. The gods had struck with thunder and wave, with shadow and flame, and though the Titans trembled, they did not fall. For every wall that cracked, another was raised. For every Titan wounded, another returned with fury renewed. And so began the long struggler war of years, of centuries, where the earth itself became the battlefield, reshaped by divine fury. A world torn asunder, the heavens and the earth groaned beneath the weight of war. Mountains rose and fell in a single day. Rivers boiled, oceans swallowed coastlines, and forests were burned into deserts, only to rise again by Demeter's will. The sky itself bore scars, constellations torn down and hurled like spears, stars shattered into storms of fire. At times, night was brighter than day, lit by the clash of powers so great that mortals, far below, could only cower in awe and terror. The seas grew wild and treacherous, for Poseidon and Oceanus clashed without ceasing. Waves as high as mountains, consuming whole lands. Mortals whispered of gods walking among them, but in truth they were nothing but ants crushed beneath the heels of titans and deities. The world was no longer whole. It was a battlefield of eternity. The Titans' might. Atlas bore the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, a living pillar that kept the sky from crashing down. Hyperion blazed across battlefields, his body an inferno that no storm could quench. Kus drew power from the constellations, bending the stars to his command, while Crius unleashed storms of raw chaos, tearing armies apart. Above them all stood Kronos, his sickle drinking time itself. He wielded the past and the future as weapons, undoing ages with a stroke. Armies that dared to stand before him withered into dust, their weapons rusting in their hands before the fight began. Yet even Kronos, Lord of Titans, could not erase the prophecy that haunted him, that his children, those he once devoured, would bring his fall. The gods' resilience, Zeus answered Kronos, fury with thunder that shook the firmament. Poseidon raised lands from the sea, forging battlefields where none had stood before. Hades stalked the shadows, striking unseen, sowing fear even in the hearts of immortals. Hera's command bound the gods together, her will unshaken even as empires crumbled. Demeter restored what was lost, raising life from death, ensuring that even in war the gods did not wither. Hestia's flame burned quietly, an eternal beacon at the heart of their camp, reminding all that home and hearth still endured, and their allies, the Cyclopes and Hecatoncers, fought with unmatched might. The Cyclopes forged weapons without equal, hurling bolts of fire and steel across battlefields. The Hecatoncers, with their 100 arms, became storms of destruction, tearing apart Titan's fortresses, uprooting mountains, and hurling them as missiles. Stalemate of the immortals' battle followed battle, and still neither side prevailed. The war became endless, a cycle of destruction and renewal. When the gods pressed forward, the Titans countered, striking them back into retreat. When the Titans advanced, Zeus' storms and Poseidon's waves shattered their momentum. For every victory, there was a defeat. For every triumph, a tragedy. The balance of war was unyielding. Neither side could deliver the final blow. The toll of war, though immortal, even gods and Titans grew weary. Their essence was eternal, but their spirits strained under endless strife. Zeus, though defiant, felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him like chains. Poseidon's temper grew wilder, his seas more destructive, his fury hard to restrain. Hades became ever darker, the shadows clinging to him, his heart colder with each battle fought unseen. Hera's pride grew sharp, her resolve turning into steel. Demeter's grief deepened as the earth withered again and again under Titan fire, and Hestia, though gentle, began to fade, her flame flickering with the sorrow of endless loss. Even the Titans bore wounds that did not heal. Atlas, back-bent under the weight of the heavens. Hyperion's flames dimmed at times, leaving only smoke. Kronos himself, though unbroken, bore cracks in his armor of time, each duel with Zeus etching scars into eternity. The whisper of prophecy in the midst of this stalemate. Whispers spread. The Moirae, the Fates, spoke in riddles, declaring that no battle, no storm, no single duel would end this war, that the fall of the Titans would come not from strength alone, but from cunning and unity. Zeus heard this prophecy and held it close, for he knew that thunder alone could not topple Kronos. He began to weave plans, gathering allies not by force but by oath, binding the gods together with more than arms. Kronos, too, heard the whispers, and his fear deepened, for prophecy was the one weapon he could not unmake. The sickle could cut the future into fragments, but never destroy what was destined. A war without end, and so the war raged on. The skies burned, the seas rose, the mountains fell, and the world shook with every clash. But neither Titan nor Olympian could yet claim victory. The war was balanced, a storm without end, an endless clash of immortals, upon which the fate of all creation hung. The mortals prayed, the earth groaned, and the heavens watched, for in the balance of war, all hung suspended between ruin and rebirth. And though the Titans still sat upon their thrones, the storm gathering in the hearts of gods promised that the balance would not last forever. Thus ended the 7th chapter of the Titanomachy with triumph, not with despair, but with a war that consumed eternity, balanced on the edge of fate. Chapter the 8th, Betrayals and Alliances. For centuries, the war raged on. Neither side triumphed, neither side yielded. The earth was torn, the seas roared, the skies burned, yet still the balance held. But no war, however eternal, could remain untouched by whispers of doubt. Even immortals, bound to their causes, could falter. Pride and fear, loyalty and ambition, these were weapons as sharp as any blade, as powerful as any storm. And in the halls of titans and gods alike, whispers began to spread. Seeds of betrayal among the titans, discontent simmered. Some had grown weary of Kronos' tyranny. Others feared the prophecy that the children he had devoured and regurgitated would one day bring his downfall. Prometheus, the titan of forethought, saw the future with clearer eyes than most. He watched the battles, the endless bloodshed, and he knew the titans cannot win. His brother, Epimetheus, was less certain, but Prometheus whispered to him in secret, "Kronos clings to power, but power cannot outlast destiny. If we stand with him, we fall with him. If we turn to the gods, perhaps we endure." These whispers reached others minor, titans who had never tasted true authority under Kronos' iron hand. Menetius, proud and reckless, still stood firm, but others hesitated. Atlas bore the heavens with loyalty, yet even he questioned how long his back could hold the burden of eternity. The council of the gods in their hidden stronghold, the gods gathered. Zeus' thunder crackled in the air. Poseidon's trident gleamed. Hades' helm lay before him upon a dark stone. "We cannot win this war with strength alone," Zeus declared. "The titans are too many, too entrenched. But strength is not the only weapon. Minds can be sharper than blades." Hera narrowed her eyes. "You speak of betrayal. I speak of truth," Zeus answered. "The titans are not united. Kronos rules through fear, not love. Fear cracks, and when it cracks, we must be ready to strike." Prometheus' name was whispered among them, the titan who thought ahead, who had spoken, even in secret, against Kronos. Zeus resolved to seek him out. The temptation of Prometheus one night, as the skies burned red from battle. Zeus descended in a storm to a hidden valley where Prometheus dwelled apart from his kin. "Prometheus," Zeus thundered, "son of Iapetus, brother of Atlas. You see the truth of this war, as I do. Why do you still bind yourself to Kronos, who devours his own children, who bends even titans beneath his fear?" Prometheus did not kneel, but neither did he strike. His eyes, deep with thought, glowed faintly. "Because he is Titan, as I am Titan. But I know this, son of Kronosu will not fall. The prophecy guards you, and if I side with you, perhaps the new age will be gentler than the old." Zeus extended his hand, lightning dancing across his palm. "Stand with us, Prometheus, and when Olympus rises, you will have a throne beside us." Prometheus smiled faintly, for he knew thrones were not his desire. His desire was freedom for gods and men alike. But he placed his hand in Zeus, and lightning sealed the pact. Thus the first Titan betrayed his kin, the wrath of Kronos. When word of Prometheus' betrayal reached Kronos, the sky blackened with his rage. His sickle sliced through the air, and time itself screamed. "Traitor," he roared, his voice echoing across mountains. "Let him suffer for eternity. Let his foresight be his curse." But Prometheus did not flee. He remained among the gods, forging plans, guiding Zeus with wisdom. Kronos' fury could not unmake the truth that cracks had formed among the titans. Some whispered in secret, wondering if they too should abandon the tyrant. The alliance of sea and sky as betrayal weakened the titans. Alliances strengthened the gods. Poseidon, ever restless, sought out beings of the deep, the Nereids, daughters of the sea, and the ancient sea god Nereus himself. "Stand with me," Poseidon declared, his trident raised above the waves. "And when the titans fall, the seas will be yours to rule." Unfettered by Kronos' chains, the Nereids swore their allegiance, and the sea itself rose in answer. Now, when Poseidon struck, he struck with the power of every current, every tide, every living creature of the deep. Meanwhile, Hades turned to Nyx, goddess of night, and her brood of shadow. She did not love Kronos, for time and night were eternal rivals. With whispered promises, Hades drew her children into the fold: Thanatos, the spirit of death; Hypnos, lord of sleep; and the Onaroi, who carried dreams. With these allies, the gods grew stronger still. A war rebalanced. The next great battle came at the plains of Phlegra. The Titans marched in endless ranks, Atlas at their head, Hyperion blazing, Oceanus roaring. But this time the gods met them with fire and cunning. Prometheus guided Zeus' hand, showing where the Titans' lines were weakest. Poseidon's new allies turned the sea itself against Oceanus, dragging his rivers into whirlpools. Hades unleashed the children of Nyx, shadow-swallowing Titan ranks. For the first time, the Titans faltered. They were not broken, not yet, but they were shaken. Kronos' sickle carved through time, but each swing met thunder, trident, and shadow. The balance of war had shifted. The shadow of doubt as the Titans retreated. Kronos sat upon his black throne, the sickle across his knees. His eyes burned with wrath, but in their depths was fear. The prophecy gnawed at him. Prometheus' betrayal mocked him, and the god's strength grew with every alliance. He called upon his loyal sons and daughters, binding them tighter with oaths. Yet he knew, even immortals can betray, even eternity can crumble. And thus, though the war raged on, its fate inched closer to fulfillment. Thus ended the 8th chapter of the Titanomachy, with betrayal sown, alliances forged, and the storm of destiny gathering strength. Chapter 9. The fury of Kronos. The plains of Phlegra still smoldered. Titans had bled, gods had triumphed, and whispers of betrayal had spread like wildfire through Othrys. Yet, in the throne room of black stone, Kronos sat unmoved, his hands caressing the sickle of adamantine, the blade that had once severed the sky from the earth. His eyes, deep as eternity, burned with wrath. The betrayal of Prometheus gnawed at him. The growing power of the gods mocked him. But above all, the prophecy haunted him. One day, your children shall rise and overthrow you. Kronos rose from his throne, and the air itself froze in fear. Enough, he thundered. This war will not linger. Time itself bends to me, and time will crush the upstarts, summoning the rivers of time. At his command, the Titans assembled. Hyperion blazed like a sun. Atlas braced the sky. Oceanus churned seas into whirlpools. Kus and Crius whispered curses to the stars. Kronos raised his sickle high. You wield fire, storm, and sea. But I wield what none can resist, the river of time. Today, the gods shall not merely be defeated, they shall be unmade. He struck the earth, and the sickle tore reality apart. From the wound spilled the rivers of time, currents of glowing silver that flowed neither forward nor backward, but in all directions at once. They wrapped around the Titans like armor, aging their wounds shut, strengthening their bodies with the vigor of youth and the wisdom of age. Then Kronos pointed toward Olympus, where the gods prepared their next strike. March, he commanded, and let time itself be our weapon. The battle at the Vale of Tempest. The two armies met in the Vale of Tempest, a land of shattered skies and broken mountains. Zeus descended in a storm of thunder, lightning splitting the heavens. Poseidon rose from the sea, trident gleaming. Hades came cloaked in shadow, helm of darkness, hiding his form. Their sisters stood beside them, Hera's command like steel, Demeter's touch restoring the earth, Hestia's fire burning, unyielding. And yet, when Kronos entered the field, all fell silent. The sickle glowed with the light of centuries, every swing slicing not flesh, but existence itself. A mountain crumbled into dust as though it had aged 10,000 years in a heartbeat. Rivers dried, forests rotted, even lightning dimmed when it touched the blade. The undoing of armies, the gods charged, their allies at their side. The Hecatonchires hurled mountains, their 100 arms crashing down like storms. The Cyclopes struck with fire-forged bolts. The Nereids surged with Poseidon's seas. But Kronos answered with time. When Briareus raised a boulder, Kronos struck and, in an instant, Briareus' arms withered, aged to bone, then back to dust. The giant roared in agony, only for the flow of time to reverse, restoring him in an endless cycle of torment. When the Cyclopes hurled their weapons, Kronos' sickle cut them into rust before they touched the ground. When Poseidon summoned a tidal wave, the blade split it, and the waters evaporated into vapor as if centuries had passed in a breath. The gods fought with fury, but Kronos fought with inevitability. Zeus against the sickle at the heart of the storm, Zeus faced his father once more. Your tyranny ends here, Kronos. Zeus roared, thunderbolt blazing in his hand. Kronos laughed, a sound like the grinding of eternity. Foolish child, do you not see? I am time. You cannot kill what devours all. Zeus hurled his thunderbolt, a storm condensed into pure flame. Kronos swung his sickle, and the bolt aged into sparks before it touched him. Then Kronos struck. The sickle carved the air, and where it passed, Zeus' skin withered, his hair turned white, his body aged 1,000 years in a breath. The god of thunder staggered, weakened, his power flickering. But Zeus clenched his jaw, his eyes blazing with defiance. If time devours all, Father, then even you will be devoured. Summoning the strength of storm and sky, he struck again, his thunderbolt clashing against the sickle in a blast that shattered the veil of tempest, leaving nothing but scorched earth and shattered stone. The despair of the gods, for all their fury, the gods faltered. Kronos was unstoppable. Hera's command could not rally those whose bodies turned to dust. Demeter's renewal was undone with a single swing. Hades himself, master of death, found his power broken, for how could death touch what had already been devoured by time? The Olympians withdrew, wounded and shaken. Even Zeus limped, his body scarred by the weight of years. In their camp, silence reigned. The flame of Hestia flickered weakly. Poseidon's trident lay heavy in his hands. Hades' shadow clung thicker than before. For the first time, the gods knew despair. The mockery of Kronos from his black throne, Kronos mocked them. Look upon your would-be rulers, he bellowed to the heavens. Children who thought they could defy eternity. Let them crawl back to their mountain, broken and bent, while I reign eternal. And yet, though his voice thundered with victory, his heart was not free of fear. The prophecy still whispered, the betrayal of Prometheus still festered. He had won a battle, but he had not ended the war, Prometheus whispered. In the gods' camp, as despair weighed heavy, Prometheus spoke. Do not be deceived. Kronos wields time. Yes, but time is not his alone. Time flows for all things, even for him. His weapon is mighty, but it binds him as much as it binds us. Zeus listened, his eyes narrowing. Then there is hope. There is always hope, Prometheus said, but not in strength alone. We must find the flaw in Kronos' dominion, the chink in the sickle of time. Only then can storm, sea, and shadow prevail. The gods, though wounded, felt the faint spark of defiance stir anew. Thus ended the 9th chapter of the Titanomachy, with Kronos unleashing his fury, breaking the gods upon the river of time, yet failing to crush their spirit. For prophecy still lingered, and prophecy is a chain no sickle can sever. Chapter 10. The Rise of Zeus. The Olympians lay broken after the veil of tempest. The sickle of Kronos had carved through their armies, turning warriors to dust and bending the world itself. Even Zeus bore the scars of time, his hair streaked with silver, his once youthful skin lined with age. Around the fire of Hestia, the gods sat in silence. Their thunder, their sea, their shadow all had faltered before the devourer of time. It seemed no force in existence could overcome Kronos. And yet, though despair thickened like fog, a single spark still burned within the heart of Zeus. The flame rekindled, Prometheus broke the silence. His eyes, ever sharp, studied the storm god. "Do not mistake what has happened," he said. "Kronos wields time, yes, but he does not own it. Time is not a throne to sit upon, nor a chain to bind the world. It flows for all, even for him." Zeus raised his head. "Then tell me, Prometheus, how do I strike at what devours all?" "You do not strike time," Prometheus answered. "You strike the one who thinks himself master of it. Kronos' sickle is not invincible. It is a blade forged from the bones of creation. If it was made, it can be broken." The gods stirred. Hope, faint though it was, flickered like Hestia's flame. Zeus resolved that night. Zeus stood alone upon a cliff, thunder swirling around him. He gazed toward Othrys, where Kronos' fortress loomed dark against the stars. His heart pounded with fury and fear. He spoke to the storm itself. "Father, you devoured me once, and I rose. You cast me down, and I rose again. You wield time, but I wield the storm. And storms cannot be caged. They break chains, they break mountains, they break even thrones." Lightning split the sky, and in that flash, Zeus swore an oath. He would not rest until Kronos fell. He would be the storm that shattered eternity. Gathering of allies. Zeus knew strength alone would not suffice. He turned to his brothers. "To you, Poseidon, I grant the seas unfettered. Stand with me, and the oceans shall answer your will forever." Poseidon struck his trident into the ground, and water surged up in answer. "I am with you, brother. Let the seas drown the Titans." "To you, Hades," Zeus said, "I grant dominion over the underworld, a realm untouched by time. Stand with me, and death itself shall answer your call." Hades' shadow deepened, his helm glimmering with dread. "I am with you. Let even Titans learn the silence of death." Together, the three brothers clasped hands. Sky, sea, and shadow bound in oath, a trinity of power no Titan could rival. Council of the sisters, their sisters, too, pledged their strength. Hera, unyielding, declared, "I shall be your queen, Zeus, and bind the gods in unity. No rival shall break us while I stand." Demeter lifted her hands, and from the scorched earth sprang green shoots. "I shall restore the world you protect. Where Titans bring ruin, I shall bring life." Hestia fed the flame at the heart of their camp. "And I shall guard the hearth, the soul of Olympus, that it may never be extinguished." With siblings united, Zeus felt the storm within him swell to its full power. The forging of weapons, but to face Kronos, more was needed. The Cyclopes, grateful for their freedom, came before Zeus. "We shall forge for you a weapon," they said, "a thunderbolt greater than any storm, one that even the sickle of Kronos cannot shatter." In the fires of Etna they labored, hammering with sparks of stars. At last they placed in Zeus' hand a thunderbolt so bright it seared the eyes, so heavy it bowed the sky. "This," they declared, "is the bolt of final dawn. With it, you shall shatter thrones." Training for the storm, Zeus did not rush to battle. He trained. He hurled the thunderbolt into mountains, shattering peaks into dust. He learned to wield the storm not as a weapon alone, but as an extension of his very will. Poseidon summoned tempests that drowned valleys. Hades walked among shadows, unseen even by the keenest Titan eye. Together, the three brothers honed their dominion, each strike resonating with the power of their shared oath. The gods became more than warriors, they became destiny itself. The fear of Kronos. From Othrys, Kronos watched. His spies whispered of new weapons, new oaths, new unity among the Olympians. His heart grew heavy with dread, though he cloaked it in rage. He tightened his grip on the sickle, whispering to himself, "I am time. Time devours all." The prophecy is a lie, yet in the silence of eternity, he felt the tremor of fate, and he knew the storm was rising. The storm before the end. One final night before the next great battle, Zeus stood upon Olympus. The wind howled around him, the stars burned above, and the world below trembled in anticipation. He raised the bolt of final dawn to the sky. Thunder answered, lightning crowned him, and his voice shook heaven and earth. "Kronos, father, tyrant, devourer, I am your doom. I am the storm you cannot chain, the future you cannot unmake. By thunder, by sea, by shadow, your reign ends." The gods roared in answer, their armies rising, their weapons gleaming, and thus the rise of Zeus began in full. Thus ended the 10th chapter of the Titanomachy, with Zeus reborn from despair, his allies united, his weapon forged, and the storm of destiny rising against the tyranny of Kronos. Chapter 11. The final battle at Othrys. The day of reckoning had come. Mount Othrys, the black fortress of the Titans, rose like a jagged claw into the heavens. Its walls were carved from the bones of giants, its towers crowned with flames that burned without smoke. Within, Kronos sat upon his throne of iron, the sickle of time across his knees. The Titan king's gaze stretched across the horizon, and though he masked his fear, deep within, he felt it, the storm was coming. The march of the Olympians from the east, the ground shook with the steps of armies. Zeus led the Olympians, his thunderbolt blazing in hand. Beside him marched Poseidon, seas raging behind him, as if the oceans themselves had come to war. Hades strode, cloaked in shadow, each step whispering death. Their sisters followed, Hera with her regal crown, Demeter with vines twining about her arms, Hestia bearing the eternal flame. Behind them surged their allies, the Hecatonchires, towering giants with 100 arms, each carrying boulders as if they were pebbles. The freed bearing weapons of fire and storm, and mortals who had dared take up arms, inspired by the gods' defiance. The sky darkened, not from nightfall, but from the storm Zeus had called. Lightning cracked, thunder rolled, and the very earth trembled As the Olympians advanced toward Othrys, the Titans await upon the battlements. The Titans prepared. Hyperion's eyes burned like twin suns, ready to scorch the battlefield. Zeus raised his spear of wisdom, the weight of the cosmos upon its tip. Iapetus sharpened his blade, forged from starlight. Atlas, the indomitable, stood like a mountain, shoulders broad enough to bear worlds. And at their center, Kronos himself rose. His sickle gleamed, slicing the air with the hum of eternity. With every motion, moments fractured, and soldiers aged to dust at his feet. He raised his voice, booming across the field. Children of rebellion, you dare march upon Othrys. You dare defy time itself. Come then, and be devoured by the father you betrayed. The clash of titans and gods, the storm answered before Zeus could speak. Lightning struck the walls of Othrys, shattering towers into rubble. Poseidon roared, and waves rose from the distant seas, surging inland to crash against the fortress gates. Hades summoned shadows that slithered across the battlefield, dragging Titan soldiers into the underworld's embrace. The Titans met them with equal fury. Hyperion's fire clashed with Zeus' lightning, day and storm warring in the sky. Ku's spear struck against Poseidon's trident, the cosmos against the sea. Atlas hurled mountains, only for Hecatonchires to catch them with 100 arms and fling them back. The battlefield became chaos sky, torn open, earth split apart, seas boiling, flames consuming forests. It was not merely war, it was creation itself, unraveling. The duel of Kronos and Zeus, amid the chaos, father and son faced one another. Kronos swung his sickle, and time bent. Blades of golden light slashed through the air, cutting years from Zeus' life with every strike. Wrinkles deepened upon the storm god's face, and for a moment he faltered, knees buckling beneath the weight of centuries. But Zeus roared, summoning the full force of his storm. The bolt of final dawn burned in his hand, brighter than the sun, heavier than destiny itself. With it, he met the sickle's swing, thunder colliding with eternity in a clash that split the heavens. You cannot escape time, Kronos bellowed, and you cannot escape fate, Zeus thundered in return. The turning of the battle around them, the Olympians and Titans fought without pause. Hera led the gods in rallying their allies, striking down Titanesses with cunning and fury. Demeter called forth forests that ensnared enemy ranks. Hestia's flame blazed unquenchable, giving heart to even the weary. Poseidon struck Hyperion with a tidal wave so vast it extinguished his sunfire. Hades dragged Iapetus into shadows, their duel vanishing into the depths. Atlas grappled with the Hecatonchires, their 100 arms binding him, forcing him down upon his knees. Slowly, impossibly, the tide shifted. For the first time in an age, the Titans faltered. The shattering of the sickle, Zeus and Kronos battled atop the highest spire of Othrys. The sickle slashed, the thunderbolt struck, each blow shaking the world. Kronos, desperate, unleashed the full might of his dominion. Time froze. The battlefield below stilled, armies locked in place, the world silenced. Only Kronos and Zeus moved in that void of eternity. The Titan king raised his sickle high. All ends here, my son. Even storms age, even gods die. Zeus clenched his bolt, every ounce of his being pouring into it. But storms are reborn, and no chain of time can bind me. With a cry that shook the heavens, Zeus hurled the bolt of final dawn. It struck the sickle, not with force alone, but with destiny itself. The blade of time shattered into fragments, scattering like stars across the void. Time surged back into motion, the world roaring alive once more. Kronos staggered, his power broken, his throne crumbling beneath him. The fall of Kronos. The Titans cried out as their king fell. Some fled, others fought on in futility, but the war was lost. Kronos knelt before Zeus, defiance still burning in his eyes. "This is not the end," he growled. "Time cannot be destroyed. One day it shall consume you as it consumed me." Zeus raised his hand, thunder booming, but he did not strike. Instead, he cast his father down into the void of Tartarus, bound in chains forged by the Cyclopes, guarded by the Hecatoncheires, and thus the reign of the Titans ended. Aftermath. The battlefield grew silent, the storm subsided, the seas calmed, the earth ceased its trembling. The Olympians stood victorious. Zeus looked upon his brothers and sisters, upon the armies who had followed him, and spoke. "Today the storm has broken tyranny. From this day forth, Olympus shall be our throne, and we shall guard this world not as tyrants, but as its stewards." The gods raised their voices in triumph, their cries echoing across heaven and earth. A new age had dawned, the age of the Olympians. Thus ended the 11th chapter of the Titanomachy, with Othrys fallen, Kronos cast into Tartarus, and Zeus ascendant as king of gods. Chapter the 12th. The dawn of Olympus, the thunder of war faded. The cries of battle, the roar of storm and fire, the clash of steel and stone all were gone. In their place stretched a silence as vast as eternity itself. The Titans had fallen. Kronos was bound in Tartarus, chained by the Hecatoncheires beneath the depths of the earth, never to reign again. The battlefield lay broken, mountains sundered, seas spilled into new rivers, forests burned to ash. Yet in the ruin there was also rebirth. Green shoots pushed from scorched soil, rivers carved new paths, and the heavens themselves seemed cleansed, awaiting the dawn of a new age. And so it was, upon the peak of Olympus, that the gods gathered to shape the order of the world. The council of the gods. Zeus stood at the summit, lightning still crowning his brow. Around him gathered his brothers and sisters, their faces weary but resolute. Behind them lingered the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires, silent sentinels of the victory they had wrought. Zeus lifted his voice, the storm carrying his words across heaven and earth. The reign of tyranny has ended, but power left unchecked breeds only ruin. Therefore, we must divide the dominions of the world, that each may guard their realm, and together preserve the order of creation. The gods nodded. They had not fought merely to replace one tyrant with another. This age would be different. Division of realms. The three brothers drew lots before all. To Hades fell the underworld, the shadowed realm where the dead would dwell. Though grim, he accepted it with solemn pride. "I shall guard the silent halls," he said, "and ensure no soul wanders lost. Death shall be feared, but it shall also be just." To Poseidon came the seas, vast and untamed. His eyes gleamed like waves under moonlight. "The oceans shall be mine," he declared, "and with them I shall guard the balance of earth and sky. Let no storm rise without reason, no tide fall without purpose." To Zeus came the heavens, the sky above all. The storm answered him as if the choice had been inevitable. "I shall rule the heavens," he proclaimed, "not as a tyrant, but as king. My throne shall be Olympus, and from here we shall guard the world together." Thus the three realms were divided. underworld, sea, and sky, eternal, each sacred. The queens and keepers, the sisters, too, took their vows. Hera, regal and proud, stepped forward. I shall be your queen, Zeus, and guard the sanctity of marriage and the bond of families. Through unity, mortals and gods alike shall endure. Demeter raised her hands, and fields of grain sprang from the broken soil. I shall be keeper of the harvest, guardian of growth. Where there is famine, I shall bring plenty. Where there is ruin, I shall bring renewal. Hestia kindled her eternal flame, placing it at the heart of Olympus. I shall guard the hearth, the flame of home and peace. As long as it burns, the bonds of gods and mortals shall not falter. Together they completed the circle, binding Olympus not just by might, but by family, by hearth, by life itself. The throne of Olympus upon the peak, a throne of marble and gold, was raised. Yet Zeus did not sit upon it alone. Upon either side, seats were placed for his brothers and sisters. Olympus was not to be a solitary throne of tyranny, but a council, a pantheon of gods, united in purpose. From this day, Zeus declared, Olympus shall be our home, our fortress, our throne. Here we shall watch over the world, not as rulers alone, but as guardians. The thunder rolled in approval. The seas roared in answer. The underworld rumbled its assent. The age of the Olympians had begun. The binding of the Titans, yet one task remained. The defeated Titans were brought before Olympus. Some still defiant, others broken. They awaited judgment. Zeus spoke with the authority of storm and law. For your rebellion and tyranny, you shall dwell in Tartarus, chained in darkness. Yet not all shall suffer the same fate. Those who showed mercy, those who sought peace, shall remain free, though bound by oath never to rise against Olympus. Thus the Titans were divided, the cruel cast into Tartarus, the lesser left to wander the earth, their power diminished. Justice, not vengeance, marked the new order. The blessing of creation to seal their reign. The gods gave gifts to the world. Hades shaped rivers of the underworld to guide the dead. Poseidon raised islands from the sea, places of refuge for mortals. Demeter clothed the land in harvest. Hera blessed the unions of men and women. Hestia gave fire to mortals, a flame to warm their homes. And Zeus, raising his thunderbolt high, promised the skies would bring both storm and rain, wrath and blessing, as long as mortals honored the gods. Creation itself seemed to breathe anew. Mountains steadied, rivers flowed, forests grew order, rising from chaos. The oath of Olympus at last, the gods stood together upon the peak. They clasped hands, thunder, sea, flame, harvest, shadow, and sky bound in unity. Together they swore, no tyrant shall reign again. By Olympus we stand, guardians of the world, protectors of gods and mortals alike. So long as this oath endures, so too shall the age of the Olympians. The oath echoed through heaven and earth, etched into the fabric of fate itself. Epilogue. A new age, as dawn rose, golden light spilled across the world. Mortals looked up and saw the storm pass, the seas calm, the land flourish. They spoke in whispers of the gods who had overthrown the Titans, who now watched from Olympus above. And in the heavens, Zeus sat upon his throne, the bolt of final dawn resting beside him. The storm no longer raged, but waited ready, should tyranny ever rise again. So ended the Titanomachy, and so began the age of the Olympians and age of gods, an age of legends, an age where heaven, sea, and underworld stood in balance beneath the watchful eyes of Olympus. Thus ended the Titanomachy. The Titans fell, their reign cast into the abyss of Tartarus. And from the ashes of ruin, a new order rose, the age of the Olympians. Zeus claimed the heavens, Poseidon the seas, Hades the underworld. Together with their sisters, they forged Olympus, not as tyrants, but as guardians of the world. And so, from storm and fire, from shadow and blood, dawned a new era of God's age that would echo across eternity.